in on your experience. But it is definitely an area that is, more and more community participation is needed. And that's where the strength of the Sustainable Energy Communities programme comes in. And, particularly with the new active travel officers that we have in the local authorities, and the focus from roads to, possibly mostly looking at cars in the past to looking now at moving the most amount of people in the safest way, in the quickest way. So, that may be cars in some places, but it may be other modes of transport in others. And then, of course, different members of our communities have different needs. So this morning we're going to talk about our schools and our children traveling to school and young adults as well. And this is our first of 4 series. So next week we're going to be looking at actively contributing to travel planning and in local authorities, and there's a lot of that going on at the moment. So it's very important that groups who are speaking to, kind of understanding what the community needs are involved in that, and our local authorities are keen to have involvement from local community groups. So we'll chat about that. We have Katrina Corr joining us from Kilkenny County Council. So they're doing a lot of development there. And we're also going to have Julia Grigolio joining us from Dunleary. But Julie's going to be talking to us mostly about engagement and the engagement she's done as a normal person on cycling campaigns and walking campaigns and all those different things. Then we'll have on the 17th we're going to focus on wheels, so we're going to focus on electric vehicles, we're going to focus on public transport, anything like that can be improved in rural and urban areas. And then on the 24th of May we're going to finish up, and the focus on that is then like a workshop around where we all kind of get together and throw out our examples in our local area and kind of see what we can do and how even we would go about, kind of getting our neighbours and our friends involved in this important topic. Because, transport, often we think, oh, it's just how I get to work or how I get back and forth, but it's not. It's how the space in our communities is used. It's how, people might get their fresh air or how they might get a chance to meet with their neighbours. It's all these different things. So it's kind of fundamental to how our communities work. And then for that reason, it's great to have so much involvement now from local communities kind of asking for what they want and what they need when it comes to sustainable transport. So as I say, we'll have an introduction to pose, and we'll have Jane joining us, Alan Kern from the Galway Cycle Bus, and then we'll have questions and answers, and we'll close up. So I'm going to keep it as tight as I can. So housekeeping wise, so if people wouldn't mind muting their microphones while we have our speakers, and then if you want to switch off your camera when you're not speaking, although I don't mind, sometimes it's nice to have a nodding head or like, just to feel like you're not speaking out into the ether. We're going to have our conversation at the end. So it's nice to give the speakers a chance to get their thoughts and their words out. And then if we don't answer all the questions, which I'm sure we will because we've good enough time, we might follow up on our follow-up email with our questions. And then finally at the end, just that this has been recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel. So if you have any question, if you have a question but you don't want it included, let us know and we'll edit it out. But also, feel free to share the link after we've done. So why are we focused so much on transport? So there's a huge carbon emissions associated with our transport, and there's also, particularly recently, there's a huge cost. There's a financial cost, and in some cases there's a health cost or maybe community cost or whatever it is. So it's interesting that when it comes to carbon emissions, our electricity, all of these other things, they're all improving and the numbers are going down, but that is not the case for our transport. Our transport is, the carbon emissions have doubled in the last 10 years. There's a perception, and in many places it is true that the roads are unsafe, and then therefore people drive more, making the roads less welcoming for other ways to travel. We have more people delivering stuff, all these different things, but it's a bit worrisome that our transport emissions just keep going up and up and up. And it's worrisome, but it's also possible to really change how a community travels and to give people options. And that's what we're about today. We're to give people options. And it's really possible for a community to do that. So Sustainable Energy Communities, as a group, commit to improving energy use where they live. And often, we focus on buildings, and that's our main thing that we're looking at. But then transport is, 20 to 25% of the energy that we're using every day. So it's a big impact. And if we can save some of that fuel from being burnt, that's good for our community and maybe good for our environment as well. So just to give a little bit of background policy wise, so Jane will be speaking about things from the point of view of safety and children being more active, but there's also, and the same with Alan, but there's also the fact that we have goals that we are trying to meet as a country that wants to reduce our carbon footprint and be a world leader when it comes to being energy efficient. And that, we really do need to make a big jump in that, in saving that energy. And a large chunk of that, as you can see from the graph, is in how we travel. And the kind of goals, the figures that the government have is that they want to have about 500,000 daily trips being done by public transport or active travel. So that's a really big jump. I think, when we have walking, maybe might be in the 3, 4, 5 or 6% range at this stage, to really get that up to, at least a quarter of well, not a quarter, but a good number of people traveling by, walking, cycling, scooting, getting the bus, getting the train, all of these different options. And then for the cars that people have, we also want to electrify those cars. And then we already have the mass electrification of buses. And I was in Belfast at the weekend and I saw the first of these driving around Belfast, and it was very exciting because all of our buses in the south will all be electric in the next few years. So there's big changes going on. And then today, I suppose schools, why do we look at schools first when it comes to transport? And schools, there are at least 20% of the journeys on our roads each morning. Are by nature, many children live quite close to their schools and are in the kind of school area, the district. So they're traveling quite short journeys. Most of them are less than 15 minutes. So it means that you're kind of traveling in a car distances that could be done by walking or by bike. There are health implications to driving for children. So you can have increased air pollution by cars idling, or the starting near the gates. And it's interesting, there is, I think actually Antashka have a program, and I might share the links. It's like a citizen science program for children to measure air pollution levels outside of their school, because it probably is, in most of our communities, is probably the area where there's the most idling of cars, and that has an impact that really creates a lot of air pollution. And then of course there is low activity levels amongst children is often tied to their ability to focus. So it makes sense that if children kind of get use their energy in the morning and meet their friends and have fun before they get into the class, kind of helps them focus their minds on the subject matter rather than, all the social elements of school. And then, so it is the thing that most car journeys are made because it's a safe and quick option. But of course, if we can make our roads safer, that will make it possible for children to walk and cycle. And safer roads for children means safer roads for us all. And I think it's a good thing whenever you're thinking about anything for your community, always think about how will the youngest among us use the services. I always like to think of, particularly with cycle lanes, would a wobbly 5-year-old on a bike be safe on a space like that. And sometimes in some of our cycling infrastructure, they may not be. So, kind of if you're thinking ahead and trying to look at areas that you might make safe for cycling and walking, always, think of the youngest children and of course the oldest among us as well, because as I say, if we make roads safe for children, it means that we make them safe for all of us. So, Mary, if you wouldn't mind, we just kind of get an idea of the group here and involvement in schools. Mary, if you could launch the polls there. So yeah, the first one is, do you drop children off to school in your daily life, or even a few times a week? Imagine a good few people do. And then in your area, do you notice an increase in traffic at school drop-off times? So morning time, evening time. And even if people aren't dropping off children themselves, you're still a road user and a community member who, I'm sure you're keeping an eye out for the younger people in your community. So you want to make sure that they can travel safely. And of course, as someone who would use the road, you're probably you're kind of going to be impacted. Although it's good to see there's one option where there's really no increase, which is good to see. And so we'll give it another 5 seconds there, and then I might. Great. I think that's it. So we might end the poll there, and I'll share it. So it's interesting. We have, although actually everyone can see my screen anyway. So we kind of, a good mix there of people dropping off children to school, and some people not. But of course, obviously using the roads at those times, and then in general there is an impact on in traffic in your area. So some people seeing quite a large change. So, even if it is that you don't have children traveling to school, as someone who is a road user, the traffic to school can either, kind of benefit you or disadvantage you depending on what way things are in your community. So I will just, oopsie daisy. So yes, so I would like to welcome our first speaker, Jane Hackett. And as I mentioned, Jane is the program manager for the Safer Routes to School program, which is a very important program nationally. So Jane, if you are happy to, actually, I'll stop sharing and I'll let you. So thank you very much, Jane.
Thanks a lot, Grania. You've given a really good overview of actually all of the issues associated with school travel. Don't actually know if I need to do this presentation now. But hold on, I'll just share my screen. So look, I'm just going to give an overview about the programs that I manage. Can you see them now?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I manage 2 programs that are funded by government. One is called Green Schools Travel. And if you're a parent, you might know that your children are in a green school if they have a big green flag flying outside it. It's kind of a giveaway. So we have thousands of schools around the country participating in the program. And just to say, I work for the Environmental Education Unit of Ansi. And some of you might know the programs we run: Blue Flag Beaches, Clean Coasts. Green Schools obviously is the most impressive one anyway. And also Climate Ambassador, and a new program now, Safe Routes to School. So if you're involved in your local community, you might be involved in some of these programs also. So just to say, the Green Schools program is an environmental education program. So it is an international program and runs in 57 countries around the world. So if you're traveling throughout Europe or further afield, have a look for some green flags. The program is voluntary program that schools have been doing, and it's been running in Ireland for over 21 years now. So what I see around me in terms of increased knowledge of sustainability, I definitely know that the Green Schools program has been very much part of that awareness in society. Students who are in green schools are now, in the workplace, bringing ideas of sustainability to their employers. So anyway, the Green Schools Travel Program has been running since 2008, and it's a simple aim just to encourage, parents and teachers and students to walk, cycle, scoot, use public transport or carpool instead of using the car. Sounds really simple, but it's very, very hard to actually get people to change their behaviour. And this is what our programme is. It is fundamentally a behaviour change programme, asking people to look at how they travel and see if they can use a different mode other than the car. So this is what we want. We want to see bike sheds full of bikes and scooters. And this is my children's school in Harold's Cross, one of the busiest locations in Dublin City. If this school can achieve it, I think many schools can. And this is down to a very strong principal who banned cars from entering the school gates, and really putting a heavy focus on active travel. And if you know Harold's Cross and Dublin City Centre, you will know that it's one of the key networks for for buses and for traffic coming into the city centre. So it's busy. So look, why do we need to do it? And I think Grania covered a lot of these, so I'll just pick out the top ones. I think safety is massive when you look at the fact that road traffic collisions account for approximately 37% of children's deaths annually. So safety is huge. And a big thing really is the size of cars now. So, people are moving into getting electric vehicles, which is fantastic, but they're also getting electric SUVs, and the growth of SUVs is very worrying, especially when you live in a rural community. So, there's a child who's 5 or 6 or 7 is just invisible when you're driving an SUV. So let's just see how that's going to work out in our roads and our towns and cities. The other one obviously is, I'll just go back. I thought I had another one there. Oh, sorry. The other slide never came up, but the other ones were basically the same that Grania said around our climate commitments. Also the fact that we've huge problems with obesity and childhood health and fitness. We cannot, we're fighting an onward battle with that, and active travel generates, allows children to get their 60 minutes of physical activity every day. And we also have a huge issue with air pollution, and air pollution accounts for a large number of, early onset, lung disease in Ireland, and there's a huge rate of childhood asthma. And my son has asthma, and I know that, when November comes, his asthma gets worse because of the fact that more people are driving, whether or not to work or to school. So look, these are the reasons why we're doing it, but the government wants us to do it fundamentally to reduce, congestion at the school gates, and to look at that 20% of the journey in our cities and towns. And if we can reduce it at the school gate, we can then kind of free up the road network for other ways of traveling. So we do this through the Green Schools programme, which is a behaviour change programme, as I mentioned. We have a 7-step methodology, and it sets it out there. The core element is that we work with the school to set up a committee of children and adults to kind of set out actions to really help the school to look at the existing ways in which students travel to school and identify options for the school. So is it a school in a built-up area that have footpaths and cycle routes, and yet they're still having 63% of children coming to school by car? And why is that? So they'll identify what the current level of walking and cycling is and put an action plan in place over a 2-year period, and set clear who is responsible for setting out those action plans and carrying them out. They monitor and evaluate it, and they link it to the curriculum. So it's been very successful. We have over 2,500 schools have done it nationwide, and this is schools all over the country in very small rural communities and then very busy towns and cities. And the Department of Transport fund us, and the National Transport Authority support us. So look, I'll just run through some of the activities we do. You might be interested in hearing how we support schools. I suppose the one thing is that we have staff to do this work. So we have travel officers, people who, have the skills to go in and kind of communicate with schools about what the benefits of active travel are. And how they do that is by linking to the curriculum and doing lessons in the classrooms talking about sustainable travel or offering lessons on climate action, or looking at health and safety benefits for the school. We also do things like bike workshops, very practical kind of workshops, or we work with, like, that's a group of secondary schools students there who are really interested in learning about climate action. So we link that to cycling or walking. We also do training. We have a budget to support schools to do cycle training. And that's part of the Cycle Right program, which we've been very supportive of. And we do scooter training as well. So if you have younger kids, you'll know that if you get them on their scooter, you're going to get to school much faster. So, and we also train parents on getting back onto the bike. So we have a huge number of, female, I think mainly women who haven't cycled since maybe they were 11 or 12, and getting them back on the bike to be, leaders for cycling in their community or in their family is really important. So what we've done is we've set up kind of annual and weekly events. So if behavior change, it's very hard to change people's behavior, for 5 days a week. But if you offer them an option to change maybe one day on a Wednesday, you're going to help them kind of test it out and try it, get a little bit of experience and confidence, and they're a little bit more likely to do it on another day. So that's why we promote Walk on Wednesdays or Cycle on Wednesdays, and they're great fun, and they've become kind of part of the school calendar now. So we run Walk to School week in May normally, but this year it'll be in September. And then we support Bike Week, which is actually in May 14th. So if anybody's interested, find out about what's happening in your local community for Bike Week. Loads of great stuff happening. We also now run Clean Air Week in November to tackle those issues of people getting back into the car because maybe they think the weather's too bad in November to get their kids walking or cycling, and it isn't. I think that's the answer. Get a good rain jacket and try and get out as much as you can. So we run competitions. This is a big travel challenge, and that happens in February. And we ask students and teachers to focus on changing their habits within a 10-day period. So that's a really nice, and we're having awards ceremony over the next few weeks. We've had an awful lot. We always have loads of interest in that. So we also kind of offer students and teachers and parents the chance to engage in the activity. So to do cycling or do walking. So this is some events that schools participate in during Bike Week, maybe critical mass cycles or cycle to surf lessons or something like that. And it sounds all fun and lovely, and it is, but the idea is that you're triggering those endorphins and those memories of an activity. And once you have those kind of memories, you'll always kind of hold on to it and you're more likely to do the activity again. So I'd say, think back on some of those lovely journeys that you did to school as a child and some of the memories that come to mind. And it's probably more likely that you would have, enjoyed these kind of journeys, with traveling with your mates to school or whatever. So there's some lovely photos of some of the activities we do. And actually, we have children coming up to us after some of the activities saying these are the best days of their year. They want to cycle, they want to walk, they don't like traveling in the car, they want to be with their friends, they want to have independence and freedom, especially teenagers. They want that independence. So it's a huge personal achievement for them to walk or to cycle. We also support schools by giving infrastructure. This year alone, we have been lucky to have 3 million by central government to fund cycle parking in schools around the country. So that's fantastic. We also do very practical things called Walkability and Cyclability audits, where we look at the infrastructure in and around schools and bring children out on the route, and they give the feedback as to what the solutions or recommendations could be, whether or not that's a crossing point or an extra footpath. And we submit these to local authority, and if the local authority can, they will improve, the infrastructure around the school. We've had great success with that. And that's how we capture that information now is through a GIS mapping system. So what we're hoping to do is build up a whole network of this information, and have that available to give to local authorities, so that when local authorities have funding available, they can simply, upgrade a footpath or put in a crossing point where it's needed. They'll have the data, the information there. So look, we also run campaigns. This is one of the campaigns we run. The stark data says that if you look at 250 cyclists on the road, only one of them currently is a teenage girl. So we have to change that statistic, or else, the future isn't necessarily looking bright. If we don't have teenage girls on bikes, we have a problem in the future. So we are trying to engage with teenage girls to get them cycling, and this is through our Ansi Cycles campaign, and it has been really successful. And we've worked with schools around the country on the campaign, and we have a video about why girls currently don't cycle. We've also done extensive research asking, what the key issues are around girls cycling. And a lot of it is to do with gender. A lot of it is to do with how they feel on a road, and how they feel with their peers. Are people judging them about, cycling? Is it to do with wearing skirts? Are they being gender stereotyped by having to wear a skirt when they're in a particularly vulnerable period of their life, when they're going through puberty? Also, the type of infrastructure that's being developed, very much focused on single males cycling, potentially to work or for recreation on very fast kind of speeds. So, teenage girls and possibly other teenage boys as well, want to cycle in groups. They want to cycle two abreast, and they want to kind of have a more of a social cycle. So there's a lot of great findings, and we're releasing the research paper will be released over the next few months. Out of this, we've also developed an Ansi Cycles ambassador program, where we have 50 teenage girls currently around the country who are working as ambassadors to support cycling. And we're hoping to roll that out a little bit more. So they are looking at their own school and looking at the problems in the school and putting an action plan together to kind of activate their own peer group to get cycling. We do other campaigns, for example, Love 30 to reduce speeding. Speed outside schools is a massive issue, especially rural communities, schools that are located on national roads, where there's speed limits of up to 100 kilometers an hour. And we also do resources. For example, you were mentioning idling. We do a lot around no idling outside schools. And we also have an air quality toolkit for schools. So there's loads of stuff happening in schools around this space. But we also, I'll just give you a brief overview of the Safe Routes to School program. So this is a parallel program which kind of developed because of the work we were doing in green schools. Behavior change can help shift mode by a certain percentage. However, if you don't have the proper infrastructure there, you're limited in terms of the amount of people you can move onto active modes of transport. So after, we would feed this back to government over, the last decade, and, now government has the money available there to invest in infrastructure. So the Safe Routes to School program was launched last year, and this is really crucially to deliver walking and cycling and scooting infrastructure out on key access routes to school. Also to look at the front of school environment and how do we make that safer? How do we take cars away from the front of school? And also to provide more bike parking. So look, it was a really successful launch at a time of COVID when, schools were under enormous pressure. We had 931 schools out of a population of around 4,000 schools seeking to be selected to participate in the program. So we have 170 schools in round one, which we're working with currently, and then the remainder will come into the program on a rolling basis. So these are schools all over the country, and there's probably some schools in your communities that are participating. I won't go through that, but that's just a list of how we selected schools, and you can get information about it on our website. There's all the background information is there. I'm wondering, there's also, we put together a Safe Routes to School design guide, and I won't go through it now, but it's on our website, and it's actually really some really great photo montages of what we want to see outside schools. And I'll just go through I have a few images later on in the presentation. A lot of it is to do with, identifying the front of school environment as a place for children, as a place for walking and cycling, as opposed to as a place for cars. Also, to introduce kind of a nature-based solutions to the front of school. So trees, planting, pollinator-friendly elements, anything to kind of reduce speeds, reduce congestion, and support kind of walking and cycling.
Jean, do you mind if I give you like a 2-minute?
Yeah, nearly there. I won't go through all this, but we do survey all of the parents, and we use this information so that we can feed it back to the parents if they have any questions. If they say we don't want this, we say, well, actually 90% of the parents said yes to this. So we use these kind of maps to identify what we're doing. These are density maps. It shows the red is the school and all the blobs show where the students are. And the idea is we then identify what those barriers are, why maybe our students all being driven. It could be because there is no footpath, there is no pedestrian crossing, and then we would put in recommendations to do that. These are just the surveys. And then you can see here, parents actually do really support this, they want better infrastructure outside the school. And then we put together a thing called a delivery plan, which outlines, it's just a concept plan for what local authorities. We submit that to the local authority, and then they put a funding application to the National Transport Authority, and then they will do the works on the ground. But all of this is a very collaborative process with the school, us and the local authorities, and with the local communities, hopefully. So this is just to show you, this is like a school in Monasterevin. That's what it looks like now. That's an option of what it could look like. So it shows you some of the elements. The rain gardens there are like the softer elements, the trees for the vertical kind of improvements, some school identification, and also nicer kind of footpaths, wider footpaths. This is a potential school up in, I think it's Collins Avenue. It just shows you like their pencil-shaped bollards there that can show you what it could look like. And we also have put in a number of school zones. Dublin City Council has put in over 40 school zones, and you might see them around, just to show what potential there is to kind of reduce school congestion and to give the school back over to these kind of more playful elements. And we also have a number of school streets, and this is a school street, is where cars are not allowed into the street during certain periods of time. And we're hoping to roll these out more throughout Ireland. So that's something, hopefully we'll get support for doing that. And that's another school zone in Cork, the first one in Cork County in Bandon, and the minister turned up to support that one. Personally, I'd want to see more greenery and less kind of concrete. So that's our next aim. Move that on. And then look, what I want to say is to the people, who are listening here today, how can communities like yourself support these measures? I think it's critical that, communities will support these measures. What we're seeing now is that communities are saying that there are problems with schools and they want solutions, but then often they don't support the solutions that local authorities are putting forward, or potentially the Safe Routes to School programme is putting forward. So we would love for communities to engage with the process. As I said, listen to the needs of the school, engage with the school about any concerns or hopes that you have, engage with the consultation process. If there is a Part 8 consultation process, often it's only the negative voices that we hear. The local authorities don't hear the positive responses. So if you're supportive of it, get in touch and please support it. And in that way, progress can be made. Offer solutions. If you know of kind of maybe a walking route that would potentially improve your local community, get in touch. Be open to change. Please explore ideas and talk to people who are trying to look at the solutions. And then support the change by speaking to community members about what you need. If you want cycle lanes, you need to recognize the fact that you might lose car parking. That's part of the transition to a low carbon economy. And also think about the long-term goal. Look, it is all about making your community a better place to be and a better place to live. So look, it would be fantastic if communities can support these types of interventions outside schools. So look, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them after Alan has had his presentation. Thanks a million.
Thanks so much, Jane. There's so much there, and I don't know if people were familiar with the green schools. I know we've all seen the flags, but like, what does that mean from the transport point of view is really good. And those tips that you have at the end. I see that Alan has joined us, and I'm very glad to have you, Alan, from Galway Cyclebus. Good morning, Alan. I might just play your video very quickly, just so to give people an idea of what a cyclebus looks like. So Jane has talked about all the different interventions a school can do, but Alan, in Galway, you guys have come up with a very, for the as you say at the start of the video, for the cycle lanes and the infrastructure that's there at the moment, you kind of had to take an unusual change that's worked really well in Galway. So I'm just going to play the video, and I might
that's the shorter video there now, Grania, because I know there's a longer video that's about 7 minutes. There should be a shorter one that's about.
Oh, okay. Well, what I might do is I'll just play. I think I have the longer one. Oh.
You can kind of skip over, I'd say, the first 2 minutes of the longer one if you have it there.
It's just even to give people the idea. So this is the one, I think, which is the longer one. Yeah. Oh, sugar. And we ran through this, myself and Mary, and she said to me, be sure to click the share sound thing, and I didn't. So great. So I will share that very quickly. And so just to give you an idea.
How do I cycle these two guys?
Famous.
Yeah, so I'd say 2 minutes in maybe. It kind of just shows then how it works. Keep going.
Okay, so 2 minutes in.
Yeah, no, keep going. Perfect. Yeah, start from there. Perfect.
Here we go. So this is in Galway. There's the kids about to head off in the morning.
Good morning.
So Alan, I actually might ask you to describe it rather than us playing the video there. Oh, we've you on mute there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Can I share my own screen here now?
Please. Yeah, you can.
I'll talk through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I watched that video myself, but I've watched the whole 7 minutes of it, so it makes sense to me. But
perfect. Yeah, I have a link to the video. I think it's the very end of this presentation. Anyway. You can see that there. So can you?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So yeah, my name is Alan Curran, and we started the Galway Cyclebus here in Knocknacarra. I think we're in our 4th year here now. And then we'll talk about how it's spread and what we've done since then. But essentially, really, what we did was a cycle bus, in its very essence, is kind of like a mobile, segregated cycle lane, protecting kids and going to school. Here in Knocknacarra, we have these painted lines on the road, and it's just not good enough when kids as young as 4 have to share the road with heavy moving trucks and buses and vans. So in essence, this is what we do. We have parents cycling on the outside, parents, teachers, and volunteers, and the kids have a safe, fully segregated route all the way to school as they cycle on the outside. That's, you can kind of see it there as we go along. So we always go double abreast all the way along. And it really started, like a lot of questions that we have, is when, my 4-year-old started school, and I said, how am I going to get him to school safely? We didn't have a second car. It was kind of too far to walk or scoot, and I wanted to cycle him. And speaking to some of the people in my own community, my own estate, we realized there was 5 or 6 kids, kind of neighbors of mine, who went to the same school as well. And it just kind of took from there, saying, well, maybe we could all just cycle together in kind of a group. And then we started organizing a little bit better. And I was kind of inspired by over in the Netherlands, they have these type of cycle buses, literally a cycle bus where kids cycle to school with their teachers. And I just thought they were amazing. And I said, how can we adapt that kind of model where teachers in particular assist their own children to cycle to school on a daily basis? So really what we do is we have a structure in place with cycle buses. Some other ones around the country have kind of a different approach to it. A lot of cycle buses would take the kind of critical mass approach where they take the full lane with loads of kids, loads of parents, big family event, and they cycle, but we don't. We kind of keep it structured. So as I said, we've children on the inside, we've marshals on the outside, parents and teachers, and each parent has a particular role. So we've people at the front, people at the back, people at the rear, and people who kind of help us at every junction, at a roundabout or at a traffic light. And really what happens is the kids just wait for us. So at every junction or outside every large estate, children just wait there to be collected. And like a normal bus, we run like a normal timetable service. We have our own time, we have our own stops. And we've sent all of these maps into the schools. We've sent them around the community. We've social media pages, and we just publicize it. And we just said we're just a cycle bus. We're as reliable as a normal bus. We go every single day. So we go Monday to Friday. Doesn't matter whether it's raining or whether it's windy or whatnot. We go every single day, because what's important for parents to know is that we'll be there. If their 5-year-old is waiting with their bike, with their school bag, that we will arrive. And we do every single day. The only times we don't do it is if there's, you know, a weather warning or if there's snow or ice on the ground. And really, I know Janet talked about this already, or Jane, sorry, talked about this, is it's needed because our schools they're not safe. You know, some of the most dangerous places outside you know, on the journey to school is outside the school gates in particular. And that's why we're a massive supporter of the Safe Streets programs in school. But around our community, we know that these kids are sharing roads. We know how bad footpath parking is, and illegal parking and speeding. So we need to do something alternative. You know, there's outside the school gates, and then there's on the routes on the way to school. The kids themselves, as I said, we've a great bunch of kids from young as 4 to about 8 or 9 kind of generally come with us. Sometimes the older kids, it's too cool for the older kids. So sometimes they bail once they do about 3 years in the cycle bus. But it's brilliant. We kind of call them the graduates of the cycle bus. We teach them the skills, the experience, because ultimately we want children to be able to cycle to school independently. And the skills that they build up with the cycle bus, talking to us as we go along, building that experience, is brilliant for them. And they just love it. I mean, they absolutely love it. They're so happy. There's such chat and songs and laughter and jokes as we go along. And it really just is such a joyful thing. The teachers, and this is the one thing we really wanted to do from day one, is get the teachers involved in it as well. There's no point just having a parent kind of cycle bus. We wanted to create the links to the schools. And in particular, the teachers just find it themselves. They notice the kids who cycle to school or scoot to school or walk to school, you know, the fact that they're more alert, more enthusiastic, you know, engaged and ready to learn straight away. One of the Nyasa there, who's been with us in the cycle bus in particular, she worked in learning support for many years, and she said you'd notice the difference between the kids who come in into school cycling, you know, the energy levels and the enthusiasm that they have. And for ourselves, I suppose in particular, you know, we're going 4 years at this stage. It's just been phenomenal. You know, it really has created connection with our community. Created networks within our communities of other like-minded people, and it's helped us to engage more actively in trying to see how we can improve our communities. Like we become community activists really nearly by default. It's spread, and it's the one thing we found brilliant is the fact that this has kind of exploded all over the country. Really, you know, we've more cycle buses in Galway now. We've one on the east coast, east of the Carb cycle bus. We've one in Oranmore. There's loads that have popped up in Dublin, really big ones with 30 or 40 kids every day. You've got Finglas, you've got the D12 cycle bus, you've got the Grace Park cycle bus, Limerick cycle bus, which was the second cycle bus to start only a couple of months after we did. We went down and we gave them a presentation on it, and theirs is phenomenal. You've got Skibbereen, you've got Strandhill. It really has gone everywhere, and kind of taking all this learning really has been great, because it's allowed us to kind of put a structure and put a plan in place for other communities around the country, you know, which is what I'm here today to talk about, to say, well, how do we start one in our own local community? So what we did was we put up a document together, all our learning, all our experiences, and we wrote them all down. So if any other community or school wants to do something that we've done, we kind of have a step-by-step approach on how to do it in your own community. And we've also signed up with the cycle buses, or the Green Schools program has been absolutely phenomenal in the support they've given us to us. And from the very first day, we went straight to Green Schools and we said, is there a program that we can work with this? Is there something that we can design and develop? Because they had an existing walking bus. So we essentially took the walking bus model, worked with the Green School coordinator here in Galway, and created the cycle bus kind of program. And the Green Schools website is a great place to start as well, and to start your own cycle bus. So we got huge support from them, and that really does need to be acknowledged. Other than that, really, I mean, if you want to get in contact with us, or you want to see kind of more information that we have a really kind of popular social media account. Our Twitter account's really popular. Our website, cyclebus.ie, is kind of where you can find all the information that we have. I'll kind of show you kind of a little bit of it now. And then just if you want to email me directly, just email me and I'll try as much as I can to get back to you. So that's our website there. As I said, if anyone wants to go onto it, it's either galwaycyclebus.weebly.com, or I think we have the domain cyclebus.ie now. And you'll see kind of a few videos there. You can see the video down below then on kind of how we operate. And it's a really good way of selling the concept, is just watching the video, you know. So even if a school wanted to start it, it's no harm to bring people in for an information night, bring the parents in, show them the video, and that'll pretty much answer most of the questions that I think they would have on this. There's always, you know, depending on the route yourself and your own community, there's always going to be issues to be solved. But again, where there's a will, there's a way, and you can do this. And that's our video then. I won't press play on it now. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry, now I've kind of ran through that really quick. You can hear the bell going in the background. I'm your teacher now in secondary school, but I'm good for another 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
Brilliant, thank you. So I feel there's so many interesting solutions there, and definitely for anyone on the call, I suppose the first thing is to even just start chatting amongst your community and the school, as Jane said, what the school needs, or what may be a benefit. And often I think it's great sometimes to speak to people in your community who you might see out on the bike all the time, because there are people who are maybe passionate, might volunteer, like what Alan has had there for the cycle bus. Does anyone have any questions